it would appear that it's happening.
It's happening!
After a year and a half of teaching from this room, in the fall, we're going back into the classroom. 5 days a week, full tilt to my knowledge, but you never know, it could change. But for right now, that's what's happening. So the question is now, how do we integrate all the things we learned and used and did in the last year and a half into our full-time, in-person, non-hybrid classroom environments? I have a new tool that I want to talk about today. So in the last year and a half, I've had to look at a number of platforms to try and figure out how to integrate some of that stuff into my classroom. Until we got to the COVID learning situation, I was not one-to-one. Like, our school just didn't have enough computers for all of the students. So the freshmen were not one-to-one. If we needed computers, we had to get a cart and bring it to the room, and it was this whole ordeal.
That was the worst.
Now, going back, it's exciting because we are moving to a one-to-one model. And so that has me really thinking about, like, what were some of the platforms I used last year that worked, what didn't work, and what would only work if I was in person. One of the platforms that I recently partnered with is Listenwise. What I'm always looking for, what I think builds the greatest amount of engagement in class, is content that's relevant and is actually teaching the students that are in the seats in front of us, and stuff that's engaging. And I think that if we can find things that meet those two needs, what we're gonna do is be able to teach the students that are in front of us and keep their attention and focus. So what Listenwise does, and it says it right on the front page of their website, it's fascinating podcasts for equitable learning. And so a lot of people say a lot of things, but I'm gonna tell you what I love about Listenwise so far as I've been sort of exploring it and trying to connect what they are doing with some of the stuff that's happening in my classroom. One, they're partnered with NPR. And so to be connected with a trusted news outlet really excites me. Finding content that comes from a source that I can trust, it just cuts out a lot of the work. I don't have to cite all these sources. I don't have to go through resource material. I don't have to make sure that what they're talking about is real. It just cuts that work down for me drastically. The other thing I love about this is their platform is really easy to use. And I mean easy to use like your 85-year-old grandmother doesn't know how to do anything else but hover and click and she can figure out this program. I've used a lot of programs in the last year that, like, I can't figure out, like, where do I go and where's my stuff and where did I save that to? And I found the thing the other day, but now I can't find it.
Where is the freaking thing?
It's driving me crazy. But on Listenwise's website, you're able to just simply search whatever topic, whatever idea, whatever lesson you're already doing, what's going on in the world today, or just something that a kid mentioned that you wonder, hey, do they have anything on this? And chances are they do. You can search by your grade level, your subject, or any topic that you can think of. You can also connect it to your Google Classroom or any other classroom platform. I'm not saying anything against certain platforms, but last year, this was not easy, right? When you had to send a kid off your platform to go do a thing and it wasn't seamless, you're wasting time. You're wasting precious learning time, and you're wasting time explaining to a kid how to navigate this thing that shouldn't even need to be explained. But, like, you know, you want to sit with the kid and help them understand, and it was just like, man, we're wasting time. I want to just get to the learning part and not the navigating the World Wide Web part.
How does it work?
So the fact that it would connect seamlessly to your own school's online platform is really, really important. You can also create a lesson library. It's like when you're watching your favorite streaming platform and you see a movie that you know your wife or your husband doesn't want to watch right now, but you know you're going to watch that thing later because that Bee Gees documentary looks great, but you know your wife's not going to watch a 90-minute film on the Bee Gees, so you save it for later. Do the same sort of thing here, where you can just see something that you think might be of use to you later down the road in a later lesson, and you just start collecting a catalog of useful content that you're going to be able to possibly pull in later on in the school year. It's just great because then it's all in one place. And I also love that as I started looking through this to see how I could connect what we're doing with some of the stuff that we're already learning in school, I can change the lexile level.
The what? The what?
So for those of you that are unfamiliar, when you do that, what you're doing is you're recognizing that fair isn't equal, that different students come in on different levels. So as a teacher, what you can do is search different stories by lexile levels to find the right level that's challenging for your students, and use scaffolding or differentiation for other students in your class that might need more support with that content. Although this is primarily podcasts, it comes with transcripts for everything, and they're interactive transcripts. So kids can read along while they're listening, and it's going to use language that they actually understand, so they're not getting caught up so much on the vocabulary. So how am I using this in my class? One, they have a section, it's called Weird News. And if you've watched a bunch of my videos, you know that every Friday we do something called Weird Friday, which to me is about creating curiosity. I think if we want lifelong learners in our classrooms, we have to build a sense of curiosity to get kids excited about what's going on in the world, that they might actually, find something they like and then go down the rabbit hole of reading about it, researching it, and trying to find out more about something. So the Weird News thing already has me locked in, already has me thinking about how I can connect that to my Weird Friday lesson already. The other thing is it ties in current events, and you can look these up for whatever subject, whatever grade level you're doing. And so when we're reading something sometimes, so when my students were reading Lord of the Flies, and we talk about how this was connected to World War II, and it was written after William Golding had sort of already gone through D-Day, had seen these horrific events and these horrific things that human beings were capable of, that he wrote this book talking about the innate good and bad that is inside of every person. And when we read that, sometimes my kids think, this happened so long ago, right? Like Anne Frank happened so long ago. Lord of the Flies, World War II happened so long ago. But the fact of the matter is that it wasn't so long ago. The scary truth is that things like that are still happening today. And so whether it's something great and positive about, what you're talking about in class, or it's something that's on the darker side, you can find things that are going to tie into that to help kids understand that what we're learning is relevant, that what we're learning right now is actually still connected to the real world in which you are living in at this very moment. So if I'm looking for secondary text, I might be looking on some of the stuff around Edgar Allan Poe, Catcher in the Rye, or a lot of things around this idea of social emotional learning. Maybe that's the effects that social media has had on that. Maybe that's the effects of being home during COVID that have had an effect on our students' social emotional state. Take some of these ideas and implement them into what you're already doing. I think it's also a really good use if you need a standalone lesson. Everybody knows that when you finish a whole unit and it's a week before winter break and you need something meaningful, because you can't take a week of watching movies, that if you want that meaningful, precious learning time to still happen, you can do that by finding a lesson on Listenwise and then using that to supplement some of the materials, and then you're not losing that learning time. You're still doing meaningful work in the time that you're given. And with those short lessons, I think you can still further students' understanding. You can talk about culturally relevant education in your classroom, and you can find lessons that are going to tie some of the things that you might be talking about or learning or that are happening in the world into class. So two of the articles that I found already that I thought looked really interesting. One was around the cultural identity of food, and the other one was around hate crimes against Asian Americans. And those are two topics that are something that will tie seamlessly into what we're doing in class already. The last thing I want to talk about, there are a ton of things I could share about this website. It's worth going to. If you just go to listenwise.com, you can find all of the information there. When I was growing up, there just wasn't the testing that there was today, and I didn't live in a place where a lot of things that are available to our students now is available to me. And so I grew up with undiagnosed ADD and undiagnosed dyslexia. It haunts me to this day. It's still something that I have to work with, something I sometimes struggle with. In reality, 20% of the current world population is dyslexic. And the fact is that federal law does not mandate that public schools have to test for dyslexia. That is something that comes out of a parent's own pocket. But the beautiful thing about podcasts and audiobooks is that they can help bridge the gap between decoding words and assigning meaning to them. When students receive information both audibly and visually, it reinforces word cognition, improves fluency, and builds vocabulary, and it supports the development of their cognitive skills. Meaning, you're giving kids the tools they need to be able to access the material that they're being given to learn. And when you take down those barriers, the growth that you can see in students when they're doing that, when you've leveled the playing field on some level, that was a lot of leveling, but you get I can't ignore the dad joke sometimes. What you're doing is making learning accessible for kids, because listening along while reading creates a multi-sensory approach for students that are dyslexic. And that I love. So when I always talk about things like who was the teacher you needed when you were younger, this is helping me to be the teacher that I needed when I was younger, because this is something that I struggled with, and it's something I can help meet the needs of with my students that are currently in my classroom, or will be in my classroom, because it's still summer, and if someone's in my classroom now, that's a problem. All right, gang, stay tuned for more ideas I'm coming up for the beginning of the year. If you need anything else, you can just follow our whole team at realrapwithreynolds.com. You can also follow us on social media. For more information on Listenwise, you can go right to listenwise.com and find everything there. I hope that this is really useful for you and your students, and that you have the greatest beginning of the school year ever. That's it for now, gang. Peace.